Since last year we have a native speaker from England at our school, and if you too have been wondering how does a person perceive the surroundings after he decides to work in a foreign country, then you're in the right place. Here I present to you Jamesem Stevensem, who teaches here at Kostka school. Okay, so hello James.
Hello.
I wanted to start with something easy. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How about you?
I'm fine. I'm just a bit tired after a ball, but I'm fine.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Did you enjoy the summer holidays? If you have visited any interesting places?
I did. Yeah, I enjoyed them a lot. I spent part of the summer holidays doing what's known as a camino, which is a long walk, a route of pilgrimage. I walked 280 kilometers from Porto in Portugal to Santiago de Compostela in Spain. So that was a great adventure. And I also spent a bit of time here in the Beskides, lots of nice time outside, and I went to the Tatra Mountains in Slovakia too, which was great.
There is this one question that I think a lot of students would want to know. When did you decide that you want to become a teacher? Or was it like you didn't have an idea at all and you were just like, oh, I want to teach? Or was it just something that you planned?
Okay, it was in 2009 that I decided to make it a reality. At that point I was working in an office job in Bristol. And I was a bit bored of my work. I mean, I was having fun in Bristol. I had a good social life, and I loved that city. It's a great city. I really recommend that anyone visits it if they can, because it's an awesome city. But I wanted to do something else with my life professionally, and I'd spoken to people in the past about teaching English abroad, and particularly Korea was on my mind, because I spoke to some people who were talking about how great it was teaching English in Korea, in South Korea, and so that was my first entry into teaching, going to South Korea, where I then taught for 4 years, and it was an exciting experience for me, and living in this Korean city and eating this delicious Korean food and hiking in the Korean mountains and making quite a decent amount of money there too. So that was a good entry into teaching, and then after 4 years there, I decided to come back to Europe, and here I am now.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that, like, what made you teach in a foreign country, but I guess that it was like the new experience, the atmosphere.
Yeah, I've always been interested in travel and new cultures, and I've travelled. I had travelled a fair bit before I went for that first teaching experience in Korea, and the idea of living abroad and having exciting new cultural experience whilst also having a rewarding job seemed attractive. So.
That means you met a lot of new students, like different type of people. Are students like in England or in Korea or in here, are they different? Do they like study more? Do they like studying, for example? I don't know.
Well, I've never taught in England. I've led groups of students for various like nature trips and things in England before, but my first real teaching experience was in South Korea. So, well, Korean students, the poor Korean students, they have to study really hard. They have loads of sort of hoops to jump through. It's a very competitive country, for them to get to the best universities, etc. So, slightly different culture. I mean, here obviously students study hard too, but it's a bit more regimented. But it was also fun too at the same time. And the students themselves, being a Confucian culture, they're very respectful. But then I find students here respectful too. But in Korea, they would to bow to me in the corridors and things like this. But in both South Korea and the Czech Republic, the students seem really well behaved. I have heard that in England, in some parts of England, in the city schools, people can have problems with bad behaviour, and there's really horrible stuff like knife crime and stuff, which is thankfully not part of the experience here.
I think that students nowadays are like closely connected to stress. How do you deal with a bad day?
I try to sort of. It depends really. I mean,
do you do some activities?
I mean, in general, if I'm feeling stressed out, I find going hiking, spending time in nature is a good way for me to de-stress. I mean, in general, I'm quite a relaxed person, but I do find that spending time in nature is a really good way for me to de-stress and to clear my head and reassess things and approach them in a nice, clear way. Listening to music and playing music. I mean, I'm a musician, so when I'm playing in a band, it's also a great way to express myself and to.
And what do you play?
I play guitar and I also sing.
Wow, that's nice.
There's various ways it's fun. Sometimes I go out at the weekends and I enjoy dancing, and no, there's various
Just
ways.
normal activities.
Yeah, normal activities.
Yeah. Another question is if you miss your homeland, and I'm not like talking about family or friends now, but like the atmosphere of the country, because I think Czech and England, they're like different in a lot of ways. If you like, are there some places that you miss or something like that?
The Czech Republic's a beautiful country, and then this region, Wallachia, is beautiful. And I think one of the reasons that I find myself at home here is the countryside's not too different from the countryside of the particular region of England that my family live in. Berkshire, it's hilly, it's green. I do miss a bit of water. Here the landscape's quite dry. There's not so much kind of water around lakes and rivers and things. And I miss the opportunity to visit the sea when I want to. I mean, I never lived really close to the sea, but it's always accessible. And so I miss certain aspects of the English landscape. I miss my family and friends, obviously, sometimes. Still, I'd say my closest friends are the friends that I met in England. But a lot of my friends are living in various other countries now too, so that's good. So, but yeah, it'd be nice to be a bit closer to my family sometimes. And there's a few things about English food I sometimes miss, but in general, I don't feel terribly homesick.
I assume that you like traveling, obviously, when you mentioned that you taught in South Korea. What is your favorite destination? I'm not talking about your work, but what was your most favorite place that you visited?
Well, I know it's a bit of a kind of cop-out answer, but every country has something beautiful and interesting about it. But I would say perhaps the country that had the biggest impact on me in terms of its sort of experience was India. I mean, first time I went, I've been to India 2 times. The first time I went, which was in 2006, I was 23 years old, and it was an epic culture shock. It was really mind-blowing trip.
A lot of new
things, and all the colours and smells and sights, and it was this completely different reality. And I visited, deserts and beaches and jungles and fantastic landscapes. And then I ended up in the Himalayas, the Indian Himalayas, which was my favourite part of the whole experience, amongst this amazing Himalayan landscape, snow-covered mountains. And it was beautiful, and all the people I met there too. And so that was certainly one of the most sort of epic travel experiences I've had. But I've had many good experiences everywhere.
Are there any special places in Vsetín that you absolutely love? And I'm not counting our school, of course. Like somewhere that you like to go.
Okay, well, really, my life here is about the access to the countryside around. I mean, Vsetín's a nice town, but it's not really. I don't really feel sort of like attached to Vsetín itself. It's more the fact that it's a good base to enjoy all the surrounding landscapes. So I love to explore the hills around here, and places like Pulchinski Scully is always great to visit there, and then go to the little pub in the village of Pulchin up high on the hills. I often do. There's many trails around just locally to Vsetín. I do. The walk from Dushin is a big favorite of mine. The red trail and the blue trail. So I love all the hiking trails and just exploring the hills and the forests around, and the Beskides, which is it's one of the main reasons I'm here, really, still here.
Okay, everyone, I'm here with our English teacher, Jamesem Stevensem, and we will continue in a bit, but right now, here comes a song break.
It's a wide ocean and the tides in motion, and our homes are chosen, yet still we're all broken. It's been a while now since that old town, down by the water, picking stones from the ground. Take me home to the friends I've always known. Take me home back to the place where I belong. distant coastline where pics and sighs washed away with that ocean's tide. Need to slow down and look around. Not that far from that place we call home. Take me home to the friends I've always known. Take me home back to the place where I belong.
Alright, so before the song we've talked about Vsetín, about the places you like and about the region itself. On the other hand, is there something like, not particularly in Vsetín, but like in the region or in the Czech Republic, like a place that you didn't like?
There's nowhere I haven't had a really, truly bad experience anywhere, but there's some places that I have no real sort of interest to spend time in. But actually, off the top of my head, I can't think of somewhere in particular that I have a strong sort of dislike of.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I think it's an awesome city.
But yeah, so I mean, I can't think of somewhere that.
I mean, every town or like every region or something has a part of where it's not very.
I mean, there's a few like.
Interesting to go.
I mean, I don't really like sort of ugly industrial areas with traffic and. So I mean, I try to spend most of my free time in beautiful green areas in nature, and I get out of Vsetín quite a lot. One of the great things about living here is the cost of travel by train is really cheap. Train and bus, public transport. So it's also a great place to explore the rest of the country. So I often sort of escape Vsetín and explore the various other towns and cities in the country.
Okay. If you could choose any place in the world that you haven't visited yet, what would it be?
It would be Bhutan, the Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan, which is a fantastic, small, beautiful, unspoilt kingdom in the Himalayan mountains, where they still have tigers in the jungles, and the people there are really lovely, and apparently gross national happiness is valued more than gross national product. So it's a sort of the society is built on happiness being the most important thing. And I'd love to visit Bhutan sometime. It's really expensive to get a visa. It's like something like $200 a day for a visa to visit. So you have to find some way to visit it. But Bhutan would be an awesome place.
It would be like a lifetime experience.
Yes, yeah. I'd also love to visit New Zealand sometime. I've never been to New Zealand. I actually have some sort of distant relatives there, so it'd be great to visit New Zealand, which seems to have everything, the sea and mountains and awesome stuff. And also I'd love to visit South America and go to the Amazon in Brazil and do stuff like that. So there's still many places that I've saved up for me that I haven't been to.
Sounds awesome. Back to Czech Republic. What is your most favorite Czech meal, if you have one?
Okay, most favorite Czech meal, I would say perhaps svičkova. Which is often delicious. It depends how it's made. I do like a really nice Czech goulash. Řízek is a really handy food to eat when you're hungry. Řízek and potatoes. I love squeezing a little bit of lemon on my řízek just to make it a little bit more tangy and interesting. I love the soups, you know, kyselitsa. I love the Valachian kyselitsa here, and krzeci viver is a nice warming soup, and chesty kachka, things like this. I like a lot of the food. It's hearty, warming food. It's great in the winter time.
It's true. When you said that you traveled around, you know, like when you were in Korea and now you're in Czech, was there like a food that you were really disgusted by, or that you didn't like the taste of? Like, I assume that you try new food when you go to like a new country.
Yeah.
Was there something that you didn't like?
I have tried some very interesting things. There was something which I tried, which at first I didn't like, but actually I kind of got used to. It was in South Korea at some of the hiking spots, which is dried silkworm pupae. So you know, like a pupa, like a small sort of caterpillar type thing. It forms this chrysalis around itself before it turns into a fly. But it's that chrysalis, and they kind of boil them up, and you can smell them from a mile away. And the Koreans eat them in a little pot with a stick as a kind of hiking snack. That took some getting used to, but actually I kind of grew to like that. And a few other strange things in Korea too. Live octopus tentacles was pretty intense experience. Trying to swallow something which is sticking onto your tongue.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Battling it down into your mouth.
Is there any food from England that you miss?
I miss a bit more fish in my life, because obviously being an island, we do have fish a bit more than here. I do love fish. I miss the English roast dinner sometimes. So on Sundays, we people don't know this, but we don't just eat fish and chips in England. We have lots of other things too. And one of these things is the English roast dinner, which is typically a nice big piece of roasted meat, beef, lamb, pork, chicken. If you're a vegetarian, you can have a nut roast, roasted nuts, and then roasted potatoes and vegetables, and it's cooked in the oven for a long time, and that's nice, the English roast dinner. I miss that a bit. I miss some of the English pies that we have. You know, we have quite a lot of nice pies. Full English breakfast. I mean, you can make a full English breakfast here, but the ingredients aren't quite the same. So yeah, there's a few things I miss.
Have you done any sightseeing here? And if yes, what did you like the most?
Okay, so I've done a lot of sightseeing actually, yeah. And I loved my trip to Český Raj last year. I spent an idyllic few days in Český Raj, and I thought it was going to be really busy and touristy, but actually it wasn't as busy as I thought, and I kind of had the place to myself, and I was just wandering around this beautiful landscape with castles and ruins and rocks and forests and in the sunshine. That was great. And I love being so close to Slovakia here on the border with Slovakia, and going to places, you know, going to Tatry, going to Malafatra, various mountains in the Malafatra, near Malafatra, and hiking the various Slovakian mountains. Český Krumlov is a beautiful place. Olomouc, which is quite close, is a really beautiful city to visit. Brno has a really good atmosphere.
I suppose that you like nature more than like museums and stuff like that.
Indeed, I mean, I'm interested in culture, and I love music, so I like to visit concerts and things like this. But I'm perhaps more interested in nature than visiting famous buildings and things. Although I appreciate them, I appreciate all the amazing Art Nouveau buildings in Prague and things. Yeah.
I assume that you meet a lot of interesting people when you're traveling. Do you have a lot of like foreign friends, or do you have like more friends in England, or just like around the world?
Quite a mix. I have a lot of friends from around the world that I'm still in contact with, you know, and I sort of try and make an effort to keep those connections alive. So yeah, a lot of friends from around the world, and some sort of old like close buddies that I grew up with too from my past and my school days in university, which is kind of old friends that you've known each other for a long time, and you'll always be there for each other. So a mix of different connections, and I've made lots of really nice Czech friends here too.
There's like a stereotype about English people, like they're strict and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think that's true, but what do you think about it?
I don't really think these days that this stereotype is true. I mean, I think that one of the things I'm proud of about England, about my culture, is that we have a really good sense of humour. You know, we have the ability to turn anything into a joke. You know, nothing is too precious to turn into a joke, and that's why English comedy has been so revolutionary. I think that we have a sense of irony and a sense of life's comedy, which sort of sees us through. We can on the surface seem kind of strict, and we have our sort of routines and rituals and things, but I think there is a sort of an openness that we have to life at the same time. So I think we're sort of complex.
I wanted to talk about traditions for a bit. Obviously, different countries have like different traditions. Do you know any like Czech traditions, or I don't know, maybe Korean traditions that people have around the world?
Yeah. So I mean, I've taken part in some Czech traditions.
Really?
For example, Masopust is a tradition just before Lent, and I have a friend, a Czech friend who I used to teach as an adult, who lives in a town called Zubří, and in Wallachia, and every year he invites me to take part in the Masopust parade, dressing up in a ridiculous costume and going from house to house and eating home-cooked food and drinking slivovica and in a parade of people in costumes, making music and dancing around. That's fun. The various Czech traditions that I enjoy, you know, I love having my goose on St. Martin's Day, and I like taking part in the Czech Christmas traditions, and
I have one very off-topic question. Can you speak any other languages? I suppose you can speak maybe a bit of Korean?
A little bit of Korean, a little bit of Czech, not as much as I really should do, considering the amount of time I've lived here. A bit of French, because I learned that at school.
Okay, so that has been very interesting so far. Thank you for agreeing to do this interview.
No problem, it's been a pleasure.
And we will continue once again after a short break.
Music is my best friend. Once you tell her to water the flowers, I want her to remember. Music is my best friend. Please tell Rosie I'm not gonna come back till September, 'cause music is my best friend. Once you tell her to water the flowers, I want her to remember. Music is my best friend. Even if the lights go out, even in the summer rain, even if the sun comes out, ooh, we keep on dancing, keep on. Even if the lights go out, even if the road is long, even if our heart is broken, we keep on dancing, keep on dancing. Please tell Rosie I'm not gonna come back till September, 'cause music is my best friend. Once you tell her to water the flowers, I want her to remember. Music is my best friend. Please tell Rosie I'm not gonna come back till September, 'cause music is my best friend. Once you tell her to water the flowers, I want her to remember. Music is my best friend. Please tell Rosie I'm not gonna come back till September, 'cause music is my best friend. Once you tell her to water the flowers, I want her to remember. Music is my best friend.
We have been talking about languages before the break, and you said that you can obviously speak French, English, of course, a bit of Czech and Korean. So I wanted to ask you, if you could learn a new language, what would you choose and why?
Well, first I would learn Czech well, because I live here. Let's think, maybe Spanish, because it would be really useful if I want to visit South America sometime. maybe Hindi, so I can go back to India and speak a language a lot of people speak there, although a lot of people speak English too. Yeah, perhaps Spanish, I guess, would be useful.
You said before that you can play the guitar and that you sing. Are there any other special talents that you have?
I like to write. I like to take photos. I don't have a decent camera at the moment, but I do have an eye for photography. And play a bit of the... I do also make some electronic music, as well as the sort of singer-songwriter kind of stuff I do with the guitar and vocals. And so yeah, I've got sort of a creative side and like creative things I do. I can't really draw to save my life, but I love writing. I write poems and I'd like to write a novel sometime too.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Me too, actually.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. And I have a good knowledge of wildlife, of nature. I know about birds and insects and animals and things.
And is there anything that you would like to learn?
Anything I'd like to learn?
Like, I don't know, maybe play another instrument. Or
Yeah.
It has to be. It could be anything.
Yeah, well, I'm trying actually to learn to sing now because I think I've got potential with my voice, but I've never actually sort of thought of it as an instrument and actually sort of focused on it as something and practiced and done exercises for it. So at the moment, I'm actually sort of learning how to sing as such. You know, there's not just my natural voice, but we're trying to do vocal exercises. And so yeah, I'm learning to sing at the moment. It's something I'd like to do. I'd like to learn a bit more about sort of bushcraft and useful sort of outdoor type skills. And I'd love to sort of learn a craft too sometime, like working with stone or metal or wood or something. It might be useful to. It'd be great just to have that skill and be able to.
It's really interesting to see people like that work, do like a sculpture or something.
Yeah. And if society collapses, it might be useful for us to learn these things. So, yeah.
Talking about music, what type of music do you like?
Okay, I like a lot of different music. Yeah, I grew up listening to a lot of rock music, and and then got into psychedelic rock and stuff from the '60s and rock and roll, and I also got into the electronic music side of things and dance culture, going out sort of dancing all night to electronic music of various different types. I also listen to a lot of world music from around the world. So I'm always interested in hearing the native music from countries I visit. Like I love Indian music and Arabic music and folk music, a lot of this sort of Czech folk music and stuff. And I listen to quite a lot of classical these days too. I find when you ask me about what I do to relax, actually sometimes in the evening just putting on some really nice classical music, some Mozart or something, can just be so sort of healing, and then have a cup of tea and it just creates the atmosphere that heals you.
So do you like any Czech artists or bands? Do you know any songs?
Well, you know, there's kind of a classic old Czech band, but you know Czechomor?
Yeah,
they do a great band, and I saw them at a live concert just below Lisa Hora in the summer. I like the fact that they bring these kind of Czech folk songs into a sort of kind of rock context.
It's interesting.
And I find when I'm with sort of teaching colleagues and we have, you know, get-togethers or parties in the year, you know, often Czechomor songs are the songs that they end up playing and singing. It seems like everyone seems to know these songs. And I like some of the sort of Czech underground alternative music, like the band called Praský výbor, which I saw live once, who are kind of quite fun and weird and kind of quirky and jazzy in what they do.
Well, Christmas is slowly but surely coming. Have you ever spent this holiday in Czech, or do you go back to England to celebrate it?
Yes, so I usually go back to celebrate Christmas. Even when I lived in Korea, I'll try to go back if possible. So I go back shortly before Christmas, so I do have time to enjoy some of the festive atmosphere here, and I'll go back around the 20th. Well, I'm going back this year on the 22nd, so I can enjoy the lead up and the Christmas markets, maybe buy some nice things to bring home for my family and friends from the Christmas markets, and enjoy some of the atmosphere, and then go back and spend the actual sort of Christmas time with my family in England.
I suppose you don't have any pets when you're living in a boarding house. Do you have some at home, or would you like to have a certain pet?
I do love cats. I would love to. I think I'd quite like to have I'd quite like to have a cat again. In Korea,
you had a cat?
Yeah. Well, I've grown up with cats in my family, and in Korea I adopted a stray cat for a while, and that's another story. But so yeah, I'd like to have a cat in my life again at some point. I do find myself connect quite well with cats. I'd also like the experience of owning a dog. I mean,
So you're not just a cat person?
No, I'm not just a cat person. I think when I eventually live my dream of actually living properly in nature and having my own place and having a bit of land and things, I think it'd be a great time to have a dog. I'd like to have a dog at a time when there's space for it to play and have a bit of freedom.
Okay, wow, thank you for the interview. I sure learned a lot about you, and I hope the students did as well. So for my final question, which isn't actually that much of a question, more like an offer, do you have any song requests like your most favorite song that you would like to hear at the end of this audio that will be played in the Kostka radio broadcasting?
That's a difficult question. I do love a lot of music. I know what would be fun to hear is a band called the Dandy Warhols from Portland, Oregon in the USA, who I've seen play live a lot of times in my life, and I think the first time I was about 16 years old, and they're a really fun band. They capture that kind of 60s spirit of bands like the Rolling Stones and the Velvet Underground and bands like that, and they're sort of fun-loving, groovy people. And there's a song, I like a lot of songs by them. Maybe it would be fun to hear the song "Every Day Should Be a Holiday" by the Dandy Warhols.
Okay, that was Jamesem Stevensem, a native speaker who teaches English at our beloved school. And thank you so much once again that you agreed to do this. And to everyone else listening, I hope you enjoyed. Here comes the song.